let's get ready for our next guest. She has a PhD and a decorated music career, and she was a member of the powerhouse supergroup Soul Development, and is a member of Soul Development. And her podcast is amazing. I'll let her talk about it. Felicia Gangloff-Bailey.
What up?
My sister.
Hey.
You know how much this means to me?
Brother.
That we sat in y'all kitchen how many years ago talking about the pod and everything that would ensue and that is here. And you gave me this look like, man, listen, I'm not trying to talk no microphone. Oh, wait, look.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have Kamale.
But this is why it means so much, because from jump, y'all brought me into the crib, we shared a meal, and we just built, and then that led to all we would create. This is just how this goes, so.
Yeah.
Everybody's a parent, they understand.
Yeah, I appreciate your understanding. Yeah, Monty, you're taking me back with that. I can't recall the year. It obviously must have been after 2019. So I guess 2020, like before the pandemic. And I very much do remember that, you telling us like, no, this is something that you can do. And at the time it was unimaginable, but now it is a platform for reference. And if anybody here is familiar with my story, then you know that September 30th, 2019, my husband and I gave birth to our firstborn, a beautiful baby, Bailey girl, Kamayu Sol, and shortly after, she also transitioned. And that obviously, I think, for anyone who has experienced grief, you can understand how that rewires you. And anything after that, experiencing that type of loss, that type of grief, I think would sound foreign to me, you know. But now, I'm incredibly grateful for Sol Affirmations, the podcast, the platform, because it has become this reference. I very much remember what it felt like looking for someone who had experienced a loss like this to understand, like, how are you navigating it? How are you getting through? Because I feel incredibly like not myself. Who am I? I'm not the person I wanted to be. I'm not the person I thought I was, and I'm not the person I am before. So I needed to find someone who understood that. And after having conversations with other angel mothers, other families who had experienced loss, it gave me perspective, and I recognized, like, okay, we need to keep having these conversations. We need to make ourselves available for these conversations because they are opportunities for connectedness. And when we have that connectedness, there's just so much more we can do. And so Sol Affirmations for me has become this reference. And it is the platform in where I can stand in the identity of being Kamayu's mom.
It's a powerful, powerful podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, it's much needed. And I mean, what you just spoke on about, you know, having community. A lot of people don't think about having community around grief, but there's so many people who feel like they're suffering alone and they don't need to do that or have that experience. One thing that I want to ask, when I was listening to your podcast, it was very peaceful, and it was just really soothing, and it just felt like medicine for the soul, you know? And I want to ask about how you kind of create that energy. Like, is there a process when you go into making those podcasts? Or?
I really like that question because it's not just my voice that you hear, it's my voice and Kariga Bailey, who is my husband and the father of Kamayu. And before we start, he always asks, like, why do we come here? So he asked this question because it grounds us. Like, why are we here? And the answer is always for reference. We know exactly why we're coming here. We know exactly why we're sharing our stories. We know exactly why we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and engage in the process and lean into the process. So that if someone else is experiencing this, and we know that we are, especially 2020, right? We all experience this collective grief, whether you experience the loss of someone or you experience the loss of a job opportunity or you experience the loss of just who you thought you were gonna be that year and the plans and the goals that you had. Everything shut us down, right? And that's grief too, because you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing now? And to answer your question, it is rooted in that. It is grounded in understanding, like, we are sharing our processing because we need to feel connected. And not just he and I'm saying as human beings, like, there is a actual human need on a hierarchy of needs, and it's belongingness. Like, you have to have it. And so it is reference for belongingness, which creates room for love.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Fee, I think I first seen Sol as one before meeting any of y'all individually at the Zoo Labs incubators. Y'all were one of the early groups to go through the program. And I pulled up to the final sort of like presentation show and watched y'all and was like, what the hell is going on? Like, because the program, anybody who hasn't experienced it, you apply. There's an application process, and you, like, as an artist, you're like, yeah, I'm ready. But they ask you these questions, and you realize quickly, I am not ready. No management, nothing. I was not ready. And then, but they were still kind enough to invite you to the experience, and then I show up and seeing them, and it was like, oh, I'm definitely not ready. Like, seeing Sol, I don't know, I'm not sure how long y'all have been back from the East Coast at that point, but y'all look like a well-oiled machine in everything in the performance. But what I remember the most was the content. Especially around that time too, when everybody is just like going out of their way because they want to get on, so they see what the standard is and they saying anything. But y'all were real intentional about y'all messaging and your language. And as I've gotten to know all of y'all, I realized how much goes into that. Boogie, I love you, sitting right there. Britt, I don't know where Britt, I know Britt is right here. Hey babe, I love you. Riga. But you, Fee, a PhD? But we said it quick too. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you provide context into what your PhD is in, and how that serves your art and your messaging, your book, your podcast, the music, everything? Even me, like, I'm late to the party and connecting the dots. We're putting this program together and thinking of these questions. I'm like, wait a minute, this is all by design. This is wild, and it's working. Like, I know it's fan. Y'all got tons of fans, but right here as a diehard of Sol and everything that is y'all, how do those two correlate? Because I know that they do, but please, it's over my head. A PhD fam, like, come on now.
Man, Monty, I really appreciate this question, but I first want to note, I wish I would have known Monty Draper was in the room, because he is a legend just in and of himself, right? Could you even imagine having known that? I mean that. My background, so my PhD is in educational psychology. And that's actually not even where I started. I started with music education at Hampton University. And I remember my senior year at Hampton, I had an opportunity to take an educational psychology course, and I fell in love with it. It was this opportunity to, like, study how children learn. And then you could, like, narrow it down and understand, like, what tools are being used for different types of people, because your socioeconomic status, your cultural background was so intricate, and I just loved that. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And I said, and I'll just keep the music part. I'll study, like, how music enhances learning. And I went to Howard for grad school. And whoa. Pen, chill, bro. If y'all don't know, obviously we're rivals, but I'm HU times 2. And I spent 8 years at Howard. 8 years understanding how music had been used in the classroom, but very specific to African American student learning. I wanted to understand more about hip hop. Now at this time, Kariga was also teaching in DC public schools. And as he was teaching, he was using his art and his music to motivate his students to learn. So I had something that I was observing on a regular basis, right? Because I participated with him. And actually this is how, obviously y'all know Lauren and I went to Hampton together, and she was also a music major. But this is where, in DC, this is where I met Brittany Tanner, who came in to create music herself. And so we were actually like on the hip hop, the poetry scene. And we were practicing this daily with the students, and then, on U Street and other places in DC. But I say all that to say, I started my thesis just understanding like how is music motivating students to learn. And what I found is that our students were like relating to the music. They felt like it was theirs. And I wanted to understand, okay, well, if you're relating to music this way, then you're receiving a message from the music. And so there's this literature that exists on racial socialization. And racial socialization talks about messages that we receive about our race. And primarily at the time when I was studying, they were saying it comes from schools, it comes from churches, it comes from your neighborhood, but nothing had focused on music. And I'm like, this has gotta be a racial socialization tool. We receive messages about being Black, right? We tell our stories through these messages. And so I decided, okay, I wanna explore like how hip hop is a racial socialization tool that shapes our identity and also influences our expectations for success and values in school. And so that was the approach of my dissertation, which also mirrored the work that we had been doing in the classroom. And so it's like when you met me, Mani, what was that month? When you saw us the first time, that was 2016, 2015 or 2016. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But we were educators, right? We came out here to open up Roses and Concrete. And so we're doing this work. And so to answer your question, that is the message. We're practicing it. We're living it and we're practicing it, and we understand how it works. Not just like, oh, this works. Actually, from an educational cognitive standpoint, I can point you to theories that show and pinpoint like how this process is happening. Not just for African American students, but for any of us. Like in the way that motivation works, and it affects our beliefs and influences our expectations, our values, our effective memories, like the places that we live in, all of that informs our expectations, our values, and our choice behaviors to persist at something, to engage in something, to go forward with something. So it's incredible work. Yeah.
That is incredible. I could listen to this all. I want you to teach a class right now. I feel like you may have answered this, and I apologize if you did, but like, what led you to, music as a way of informing our identity? Like, that is just...
So, and the reason why I chose that particular pathway is because there was literature that already existed that said, okay, racial socialization has a direct, significant pathway to racial identity. And so there's several different theories associated with racial identity, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which one I chose, but I already knew that there was a significant relationship that existed. And so for my study, if I remember correctly, messages that had to do with our legacy and our history had a direct impact on our values. That's what it was, our values. That was the significant finding from my study. But yeah, so there's literature that actually exists that shows this relationship, that messages that we receive actually inform how we see ourselves and how we think others see us as well, which is a part of our identity.
That is really fascinating. And what's interesting is I've been doing a lot of listening to Pendarvis, his podcast, and listening to yours, and I'm seeing the connection because I know that, the Bay has such a rich music history. Yes. There's so much community here, and it's centered around music, and there's so much history. Can you talk a little bit about how the Bay has informed your experiences?
The Bay has been it showed me in practice like what, hey baby, community in practice and action here and service. That's what I've learned from the Bay. I understood the true meaning of community once moving here. I had no idea that the Bay, that Oakland, like had such a strong leaning into one another and such a strong, like, and rich culture. And it is incredibly beautiful, and I'm incredibly grateful for it, because coming to the Bay Area to open the school, we were welcomed. And I'm grateful that we were welcomed, because I feel like, I don't know if you all have heard this, like Oakland, they love hard, right? And so what is it, Ryan Nicole said, sometimes their love can feel like fighting. Like, but because of the service that we were doing in the community, like the parents of the students that we were working with were coming to our shows, you know? So it was a warm embrace, and they were the ones that vetted us. Like, nah, they're about what they say that they're about. And I love that. Like, I love that the community vets itself. Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's amazing. It's a great way to hold each other accountable as well. Yeah.
I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Because I feel like, less than like 12 hours ago, you were in LA working.
I was in LA and Lancaster.
Yeah, so thank you for
thank you.
moving things around and being here and sharing this space. It was very important that your story and your contribution as a storyteller was a part of this activation for me personally tonight. And I thank you, sis.
I'm honored.
As we wrap up, can you share with us what's next, what we should look forward to? I feel like I know, but can we share with the room?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so much is happening. I heard another creative up here talking about it, like, what's not happening? Everything is happening. But right now, in the present moment, what I am able to think of is I have a book, and it's called Sol Affirmations, a toolkit for mothers who are investigating grief's process. And it is a book of affirmations that creates self-guided prompts to investigate what it is that you are feeling in your grief. In addition to this, you know about the podcast, Sol Affirmations podcast. My husband has a book called Sol Affirmations, a toolkit for reflection and manifesting the light within. And that's for anyone who is trying to navigate difficult times or times when they're challenged, and how to choose love in those times. And in addition to our books, our podcast, I am presently always actively working on building the infrastructure of Sol Affirmations. We have men's wellness fellowship groups that are taking place monthly for Black men in the Oakland Bay Area. I just had a retreat for mothers who are also investigating grief. And we're just looking to continue to grow Sol Affirmations and working with an incredible organization, Be Imaginative, who Aisha Walker is here. She's the founder of that. That's also in partnership with the Song Remedy with Brittany Tanner. There's so much incredible work that we're doing around healing and grief. So please tap in with them as well. And if you want to follow me, I'll just put this out there. You can Felicia Gangloff-Bailey at Fifi Monique on Instagram. What did you say, Ree? Oh, she's coming.
Sis, I love you. Thank you. Kamali, we will wait for you and have the room give applause to your beautiful mom.
Thank you, Mommy.